This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
Start your electric journey right here, right now. Recharge plug-in hybrid, the electric car with a backup plan.
She had foot surgery. She doesn't take like drugs like oxycodone or those kind of pain meds or anything. She's against that. So she said she was, just laid up in the bed one day in pain. And then she opened her eyes, saw the woman at the edge of the bed sitting there looking at her. Same description. And then she starts laughing at her. She starts humming like she's singing, like a hum. And then she gets up and leaves the room. And then seconds after that, my uncle comes in. He's like, are you okay? And why were you singing? Like he heard the humming. So it's just like, what is this? One night she's asleep and she wakes up. She has like just the urge. She gets up. She was going to check on my dad or his siblings. And she just has the urge to like go look out the window in her front yard at her house in North Carolina. And so she's like groggy, half asleep. She goes to the window, opens up the blinds, and she sees a lady standing in the front yard. White lady, pale, white dress, long black hair. And then she's motioning to her to come to me.
The history of our Earth is so different from what we can imagine.
Enjoy the journey.
The Smithsonian, and if they found out about a large skeleton somewhere, was to go get it.
I'm going to assume at least one person is right, because if one person's right, it busts the paradigm.
It all goes back to the fallen cherub. And the problem with the modern day church, they have a very truncated view of the supernatural.
This backdrop that's just pregnant with all kinds of meaning associated with this Mount Hermon event.
Welcome to Blurry Creatures.
And this guy defects from the kingdom. That's a big deal.
I don't know if you listen to Monster Talk at all, which is it's a podcast about monsters, but it's put on by I don't know, some skeptical society. I don't know if it's PsyCop or something else, but it's a good show. I've actually been on the show, and they had two guys on that did a 2-volume set research books on Bigfoot, and their whole thing was they would classify themselves as believers, but not that it's a creature. It's some sort of paranormal thing. And I found the interview really interesting because I had no idea, and they had very direct, explicit examples of how Bigfoot stuff gets reported, and all the extraneous paranormal stuff that go with it gets left out of the accounts. Orbs, women in white, basically their thing is if you took Bigfoot out of these stories, you'd have a poltergeist story.
Yeah. Interesting though. I mean,
it was quite fascinating. Yeah, I had never. It's a different niche to go back and collect all this stuff from both the literature and anecdotal stuff, and going back decades. But it's not just North America. They did it in other countries as well.
That was a clip from our first interview with Dr. Michael Heiser. A lot of people in this space know who Dr. Michael Heiser is. He wrote a book called Unseen Realm, and it changed a lot of people's lives and helped them wake up to the blurry stuff that goes on out there. This is another members-only episode. I thought it was cool to throw that in there and remind our listeners like the wild journey we've been on. And Heiser was the first person to really talk about the woman in white on our show. And we have another members-only episode this week, kind of going into detail about a bunch of women in white stories in a family. And we bring on an officer who comes on the show and talks about these stories that have kind of haunted his family for a long time. And it really opens your mind up to what these things can do, maybe who they are, which ones are nefarious, which ones might not be. I don't know. Lots of questions. Obviously, more questions than answers. Usually that's how it goes in these podcasts. You think you're getting more answers, and you're actually just getting more questions. And the world is expanding, and you're learning more. And we appreciate you guys for producing this podcast. If it weren't for you, weren't for your membership, we wouldn't be able to do this. If you want to listen to this podcast episode and many others that are members-only podcast episodes, you can go to blurrycreatures.com/members, become a member of the podcast. Help us produce the show, and you get all kinds of bonus material, exclusive chat rooms. You get tickets to events early. You get no ads on the podcast. You get a bunch of benefits, and we are excited to have you guys be a part of this podcast. So once again, blurrycreatures.com/members. Become a member. Enjoy this episode and many more. We'll see you out there.
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the all-new Apple Watch Series 10, now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generation, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
This episode is brought to you by AutoTrader. Look around. What do you see? Cars. Lots of them. And guess what? They're probably on AutoTrader. Whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, if you see it on the road, you can likely find it on AutoTrader. New, used, electric, and one day, maybe even flying cars. See a car? Find it on AutoTrader. Visit autotrader.com to learn more.
When you find a deal on your favorite thing in the McDonald's app and order it, does that technically count as online shopping? Save money with the app. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's, prices may vary.